This is about the best ways to choose your main for the War Within. And I've told you guys before, don't be meta chasers. Don't do it. You're going to be depressed. You're not going to have fun. At the end of the day, it's a game.
Let us lay waste to this realm.
See, Grey Pelt agrees. Hey, thank you for the follow, Grey Pelt, and welcome to our Scourge. It's a game. You're supposed to have fun playing it. The meta is going to change. From week to week, season to season, that shit's going to flip-flop everywhere. So don't be chasing it. Just play what you like, and most likely, if you like something, you're also going to become good at it. And that's what matters, because you could always, get past the meta by just being good at your class. So let's see what Marcellian has to say on the best way to choose our mains.
How will you pick your main? What will do the most damage? Which healer will have the best cooldowns for raids? Will Blood Decay be the best tank in Mythic Plus? Or should you just do what people say and play what's fun while they pick the meta specs and
I'm playing Blood Decay no matter what. I don't change. I will be a Blood Decay till the end of time. And when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, I'm still good, so it don't matter. That's right.
All the invites into groups.
Skill.
There are a few criteria that objectively people can use to determine what spec to play, to main or to alt. While there might be some debate as to what's missing or what's extra, in my opinion, these are what will influence people's decisions.
Oh shit. Oh man, we got the fucking charts, and my god. I mean, when I see people get the charts out, I'm like, what are you doing? Are you filing your taxes, or are you playing fucking World of Warcraft? Put the charts away. Just play what you want.
The most. We will be using this mock-up table since it's easy to follow, easy to edit, and easy to explain what's what. First of all is performance. This is probably the trickiest and hardest to gauge based on beta testing and essentially incomplete game design. People have been able to predict this in the past with minimal margins of error, which is how Race World First guilds managed to get their rosters done. But you may have also noticed that not all guilds have had the same roster all the time, meaning that they either decided some other spec would perform better or were inaccurate with their data. This is just to say that, sure, you can see the numbers in game, watch the meta tier list from us or other content creators, and still be wrong, although maybe not 100% wrong. If performance is an important factor to you, even though
to this realm.
State-based penguin, thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge. Look, what he's getting at is these things change, okay? Like I said, Garrosh said it best. Times change, boys and girls. Times change. Don't be chasing no meta, but you might be just finally getting geared to raid, and then the meta changes. What the hell did you just do then? You wasted your time.
In our Meta Sucks video, we go over why going for meta spec is not always the best thing.
Yeah.
Then there are a few places you can get an accurate assessment of what might be good. First would be for you to actually play the beta or PTR server with the specs in question at a training dummy or in raids and Mythic Plus, and see for yourself which one you perform the best with, assuming you have relatively...
You perform the best with or you have the most fun with. I would say right now is a very good time to test these things out, because with hero talents too, they kind of change the way things are played a little bit. So if you've been playing the same class for a while, maybe you want to try out the different hero talent trees, because that within itself
is close. You are already dead.
What the fuck was that? See, this is why I give you guys the power to use blurps, and you fuck it up, because you guys are weird as shit. You play shit light, and I gotta pause the blurps because what the fuck was that? That's creepy as hell. Thank you, Radnod. I don't know what the fuck that was. Okay, I lost my train of thought. What the hell was I even saying? I don't know.
Equal skill expression across all of the specs.
I give you the power.
That might be time consuming. Also, welcome to making spec and class content on YouTube. Another source would be the Simulation Craft website, link below. People actually sim the expected performance of the specs to get an ideal number. Now, to my knowledge, the sims run a template character with a predetermined set of items and stats that you may not have for your own characters, so the sims will never be 100% accurate, but they would be as accurate as predicted calculations can be.
Sure.
A likely more in-depth source of information would be the class discords. The theory crafters do good research and simulations and actual testing as well. Plus, talking to people that keep tabs on all of the spec changes.
Class discords are fun even if you're not meta chasing. It's fun if you enjoy, like I said, playing a specific class, because a lot of times people will just always be posting what's the best way to, play your class, even if it's in a shit mode, even if it's bottom of the list right now. There's always people playing your class. I'm in the Death Knight one. I should say I'm the leader of the Death Knight one. How about that?
Give you access to information that has context. They can
That's
tell you,
good then. I
hey,
know.
listen, in this raid and
Whispers of
likely
N'Zoth are the
at
best,
your
though.
skill level, this might work better for you, and stuff like that. Not only that, the people there can actually clarify the information that numbers behind sims and tier lists can mean, since, as we know, all of these data-driven sources of information are always lacking some level of context that people don't realize and take for granted. In the end, performance-based decisions will always...
Hold on. You're calling me out. I am in the Death Knight one. It's right here. Arcris, okay? Yeah. Rolls, different things, general. Oh, look at that. Blood DK stuff, yeah. I am in here, okay? I am. I'm actually the founder of it.
always have a lack of reliability, because even if the theory crafters in class discords
Sometimes
are
I look at how I
100%
play
right,
my class.
even if the sims are 100% correct, Blizzard can do one last minute nerf just before the season starts that would bump your spec down a few places and making picking your main a pain. Picking your main is not as important as picking your career, and for back-end web development, there is no better way to start than with today's sponsor,
look at that transition.
Boot.dev.
Wow.
And that's because Boot.dev will help you learn back-end web development from start to finish in the programming languages Python and Go, and you just don't learn it in any boring way you might be expecting, since the people at Boot.dev really believe that the best way to learn is to actually have fun when doing it. Who would have thought? If only my school teachers wouldn't have known that, maybe I would have learned more code as well. And they deliver on it, with the process of you learning being like playing an RPG game where you acquire...
Yeah, Silar, I would say,
experience points
I'll lower
per
this.
lessons complete.
You know, your experience may vary in terms of class discords. Now, the one I go to, the Death Knight one, they have like Q&A sections, and then they have like, you know, just bitch your ass out sections. So it's nicely divided, so you don't have to deal with all the bullshit. Because you're right, some class discords are just people just blasting their classes, putting out their opinion on how shit things are currently. So you have to go join them and see what you think about it.
So well, since you have the option to work from home, something that's been way appealing to a lot of people. And if you have questions or get stuck at any point through these lessons, Boot.dev even has an active Discord community where you can get people there to help you out. To get started, make sure you click the link in the description below and use our code MarcellianOnline to get 25% off of your first purchase, which can mean anything from your first month of the subscription to 25% off of the yearly plan if that's what you decide to go with.
Nice.
Thank you, Boot.dev, for sponsoring this video. As an example, depending on when you watch this video, the information here may not be reliable, which will in turn save to prove my point. If we take my table example right now, Arcane Mage, Unholy, and BM Hunter are some of the best performing specs in the game.
Damn.
Let's assume that they are, so we will give them a rating of 10 out of 10 for performance. Other specs like
oh my
Fire
god,
Mage,
look at that, man. Top 8, got all 3 mage specs. Man, mages are in a great spot. I have heard that Arcane is unbelievable. Unholy, oh man, look at that. Unholy's been doing good for quite a while now.
Always performs
across
really well,
expansions.
doesn't always have the most damage. The value Fire brings comes from other sources as well, but currently it deals good damage, just not at the level of
the first Warlock spec is Affliction, doesn't show up till number 11. Oh my god. Now remember, this is like, you know, obviously, like, look at Arcane Mage. This is a great example. This is like parsed out, completely perfectly calculated. Everything goes perfectly right. If you've ever played Arcane, you know you got to put down your rune on the ground and basically stand in it the entire time to really pop off in terms of DPS. Basically, this sim is saying you never move out of that. You do everything perfectly. You never spend more time than you need to outside of that little ward zone. So take these things with a grain of salt. Just remember that this is parsed out perfectly. It's not always going to play out this way.
These other guys, so it gets a 9. Take this with a pinch of salt. The second criteria would be what I call the filling in variable. This is when your friends or guildies ask for a specific class or a spec to synergize well with the roster. This is where team composition is built and where it will matter. This depends, of course, on what your group already has, but assuming it has nothing currently, let's use once again the table I mentioned.
What do you mean, what am I out about Arcade about? Isn't it still played that way? I played Arcade back in the day. Don't you got to put your little thing on the ground and you got to stand in it to really pop off in terms of damage? No, it's not. What are you talking? When did that disappear? No, you don't. What are you talking about? That's been gone. Well, okay, fine. See, well, that's a perfect example. Actually, this I meant to say it that way because look at that. Look at how it changed. It changed. Yeah, it's gone. Okay, I haven't played a fucking Arcane since Legion. I'm sorry. Jesus. That's how it was back then. And guess what? It changed. Okay? See that? See, S-Floor? You fell right into my trap. Right? I knew it changed, but I just wanted to lay that out there so you guys come in and be like, hey, Sam, what are you talking about? Of course, that's a perfect example. Look how things changed. Look at that. Yeah.
Paint a picture. Affliction in my ranking
perfect
gets
example.
a 10, and
Things
if we
change.
had the other Warlock specs here, they would also get a 10. Mostly because the table
I'm
is
glad they
for
got rid of that,
rating,
by the way. I
but you
hated
can
it.
make one for M+ as well. In rating, Warlocks are likely the best single
I
class.
did not fail. It was intentional.
Has cost the
You guys fell into my trap. Okay?
To ever have if you had to pick one. Gateways and Hellstones, but mostly Gateways, are the singular reason why you would want a Warlock, even if its damage is turbo shit. The mechanical advantage of using it during fights is incredible and enables specs with no mobility to fill in the ranks, specs like the Priests and Shamans. So for that, Warlocks are always needed. Well, one Warlock at least.
Sure.
And with that, I go for the second most wanted class, I believe, which is Death Knight, specifically for the grips. Once again, performance might be relevant.
Grip the tip.
If the raid encounter has ads that need to be gripped, where it would make sense to play a Frost Decay just for that. Of course, Mage gets a similar point because Arcane Intellect is one of the strongest raid buffs after Mark of the Wild, I believe. So on and so forth. The reason I'm using this table isn't to convince you that my ranking is correct, but it is to help you make your own decision. If your group already has a Warlock, the score it might get here...
You know another thing about this list? I'm happy for Shamans, man. I feel like Shamans have been nut riding the bottom of the barrel for quite a while now, and it's good to see them getting some love. I feel like they're getting a lot of love. Recently, End of Dragonflight, and now heading into the War Within. Good for you, Shamans. Finally. Coming to the light, coming to the forefront once again.
Actually would be a 0 since you bring no added value to a group by the sheer nature of you being a Warlock, after someone else already gave out the Hellstones and Gateways. So the value specs get here changes based on you.
That's true. Where are rep
to
pallies?
safe pick, this is something you might be familiar with. A safe pick spec is usually
Yeah, where the hell are the rep paladins? It's not even on the list. What the hell? Are they just like that? Are they that bad? I didn't think rep paladins were that bad.
something that will never get nerfed too hard.
They're not down here, by the way. I'll move my frame. Down here is a ass rogue, feral, and augmentation. Where the hell? Also, where's furry warriors? Where the hell are the furries out there? Furry warriors, where are they? Is this like is some shit missing here, or
that will likely always have
maybe
a place no matter
yet?
what. Fire Mage gets a 10 here because of past tiers and statistics, and this is a
where's
combination
arms
of
too? Both
performance
warrior
and
specs.
fill in, even when it does less damage than most specs. Is likely the best mage spec consistently. Sometimes Frost can do better, sometimes Arcane can do better, but even so, if we take a generalized approach,
maybe he finishes it at the end.
Fire's way of dealing damage is way more reliable since you are the most mobile mage spec. Affliction or Warlock in general gets an 8 here. Similar to Mage, it's unlikely you'll
I always enjoyed Fire Mage the most in terms of like, you know, what's the most fun to play. Back, you know, my days of Arcane, like I mentioned to you guys before in Legion, back when you had to stand in a little thing, I hated playing it, even though it was the meta at the time. So I actually ended up switching back to Fire. I was like, fuck this, I'm playing Fire. I'm going to play Fire till the end of this expansion. I enjoy Fire the most, and especially with the procs and the Pyroblast and mobility with Scorch and everything. It was much more fun. There's a perfect example. You don't have to play the meta. I played Fire, because screw it.
Be useless in a group, and unlikely there will not be a really good use for Gateway, and even if nerfed, you'll still do enough damage when it counts. Now, Affliction has had a rough time over the years, but as a raid spec, it has been the default Warlock choice for years, with the exception of the last maybe 1 expansion and a half worth of raids. Classes that are most volatile would be Shamans, which just received the raid buff, giving their fill-in score a 9, but their tuning and squishiness have been a point of contention over the years, and most of the time the benefits of a Shaman has been provided more reliably by a resto rather than elemental or enhancement, in my groups anyway. Based on the last few raid tiers, I would rank enhance higher than elemental, and maybe with the upcoming War Within they might go up in score a bit more, or even interchange positions, considering that normally you would...
Wasn't Demonology supposed to be buffed like not too long ago? Were they going to be able to like summon a fucking like raid boss, like one of the raid bosses from Antorus, the Hound, the Fellhound thing? Wasn't that a thing? Like, did demonology get nerfed again? I was really excited for demonology because to me, like fantasy-wise, like in terms of warlock themselves, demonology is warlocks. Like that, just being able to summon an army of demons at your back, that's the coolest way to play. I've never played warlock, but to me, like that visually is the coolest version of a warlock. And what happened? It got nerfed or something? The Antor's dogs are a capstone. Yes, they are. Yeah, that's a hero talent. Yeah. What happened with it? Is not that good? Hero talents that make demo great. Okay, interesting.
One range more than melee, but for that, personally, I would like to see them perform in the Nerbar Palace raid first. The last three categories are giga subjective and also self-explanatory that I don't need to go over too much. Lore or story or class fantasy or class flavor is basically how your character expresses itself within the context of the game. Where an arcane mage gets a 10 because the story heavily uses their concept with NPCs like Medivh, Khadgar, and most mages in Dalaran, Shadow Priest doesn't really have a noteworthy representation. Sure, we have a lot of cultist type priests that we fight as enemies, but I cannot think of a single representative for the Shadow spec that would spark my curiosity for the lore of the spec. Fun is pretty obvious. It can encompass the design of the spec, the gameplay, the variety in its builds, but also how challenging it is, or how accessible it is, depending on the player that's ranking it. And
Anduin, I don't even know what Anduin's class is right now. What is Anduin's class? Is he's paladin? He's a paladin. At one point he was a death knight. He seemed like a warrior. He was a priest back in Mississippi. The guy, his class changed like 50 times. He really has. When in BFA he played almost like a warrior / paladin. Yeah, he's a priest. He can't be a priest though. He wears plate armor. He's definitely a paladin now. He was a priest. He was a priest back in Mists of Pandaria for sure. He was wearing cloth. He had a little wand. You know, he ran around finger popping buttholes and stuff in Pandaria all day. But now, yeah, he's definitely a paladin now. Although he enjoyed being a death knight. He said it himself. He goes, I enjoyed it. You know, it messed him up. Yeah, you got a little taste of the better side, Anduin.
Section refers mostly to aesthetics. How good does the spec look? Do you have cool transmogs for it? Does an orc warrior look better than a goblin mage? Would you rank the warrior higher than the mage in this
He's a warrior
category
now because he doesn't have the light.
Will you pick a demon hunter over a rogue because demon hunters can mock the warglaives of Azeroth? Again, all up to you. And now, as a little bit extra, I will take 3 specs and rank them here for you so you can see how my thought process works. Not for you to mimic, but hopefully to help you create your own thought processes, CZs, and your own ranking based on personal skill, group necessity, and so on. And I will do this live with no edit.
Oh, let's do it live.
Assassination first. Shit. In terms of performance, I think we can agree that right now it's a little bit lacking, even though the Sims might say otherwise. As far as I can tell, whether it is for raids or Mythic Plus, Assassination at most would get an 8 in terms of its performance. Damage is always really good, but not always that great. In terms of you don't really...
I want to say Sub-Titty Rogue is better, though. It was better in the last set of Sims I saw, but I don't know. He's missing some shit on this chart.
Need rogues almost ever. Except for when you want to immune things with Cloak of Shadows. But that's been unreliable over the years.
No, that's not an old video. This video just dropped 16 hours ago. This is fresh off the press.
Usually you would have the other 2 rogues bring it way quicker than Assassination. So I would probably give this like a 2. Maybe you want a rogue, maybe you want a cloak, maybe you want evasion for some reason, but that's very unlikely, which is why it's getting a 2. In terms of a safe pick, I
know they're making adjustments.
Been one of the most unsafest picks ever. It had really good damage at the beginning of a Mirdrasil, but it was terribly nerfed.
Assassination is top right now. You're not wrong. We just reviewed the DPS specs not too long ago, and SS was one of the top specs, but this is based on War Within beta testing, and as Tidewell just so eloquently put in the chat, because he's talking shit about me. Yeah, they're changing it every week. They just dropped a whole new set of nerfs and buffs yesterday, and I was actually going to go through them this morning, but there's so many, and it gets a little bit boring because it's changing every week. Like, you can be pissed off for a day and then it changes. So I didn't really cover it, but yeah, this is changing all the time, and right now it looks like ass ain't doing too good.
And it's been very inconsistent with the way it's doing damage and how it matches with encounters. I would probably give this a reasonably 3 because the damage definitely is there sometimes, and
Bullshit
considering that
lazy
I'm using
content.
safe pick to kind of combine filling.
Libor said ranking videos are literally bullshit lazy content. What about reacting to ranking videos and then posting that? That's what's about to happen here. How's it going, YouTube? Oh my god, talk about pure degenerate content. That's what this is.
And performance, is the most shareable I can be. In terms of the lore, it
I'm not
gets
even making
a
it.
full-on
Just
10. There are a lot of cool assassination rogues that make me feel excited for playing assassination, like Valera, like Tess Greymane, like Vanessa Van Cleef, although we don't really know what specs these rogues embody.
Right.
But they're mostly assassination rogues, if we're gonna be clear.
True.
In terms of fun, assassination is very fun for me. It has some lackluster things when it comes to its hero talent, so that kind of takes it down a peg. Normally, I would probably put assassination at around like 9 in terms of fun, but with the hero talent, that would probably drop it down to like a 7, which is a shame because assassination is just very fun. Mog-wise, I would probably give it a 8. Rogue has really cool transmogs, but
he's
not
ranking
as
the
amazing as
transmog.
with other classes, and it would get an overall
I didn't even
rank
realize that's what Mog meant. Okay, yeah, 10s for the Death Knights. That's right. He's doing it right.
ranking of 38 in terms
right.
of score compared to some of the other specs that you see here. Feral, in terms of performance, is probably around an 8 as well. It does really good damage. Its tuning is not that bad. It could probably use a buff. Maybe it could even be a 7 based on some of the latest numbers, but not a lot of people play Feral to get an accurate judgment.
I
so
have
I'm just
not
gonna put it
seen
up.
a feral druid in the game for quite a while. I don't know about you. I feel like I haven't seen a feral druid in the game in freaking like almost all of Dragonflight. Where did they go? They disappeared. They were just stealthing all the time or something. Fuck you, I exist. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like every time I've seen a druid, they're just tanking or healing.
Performance. If I play Feral, I'm confident I can do an 8 out of 10 level of damage when it comes to playing in
Yeah, they
raids or
massacred
dungeons.
them.
Filling in.
That's why
This
we're
is
not seeing 'em.
essentially when it comes to, you know, providing a useful thing for the group. Mark of the Wild is very important, and that would probably rank Feral a little bit high. However, you would probably not be the first or the second or maybe even the third druid spec that can provide innervate to a group, so that will rank it
there it is.
really down. And in terms of utility, based on how the druid talent tree is devised, Feral probably is one of the specs that suffers the most while trying to get actually proper utility.
So it sounds like
And
they're still
considering
not in
that
a good
you're
place.
hardly ever the first spec to bring Mark of the Wild, I'm just gonna probably put this at around like 5. I feel like I can contribute to my rate if I ever main a Feral with Mark of the Wild, but I feel like there's always gonna be a Resto Druid, or at the very most, maybe a balanced Druid, even though right now maybe balance is actually lower than Feral. In
Poor
terms of
Feral.
a safe pick for Feral,
It's crazy that Feral's been shit for so long, too. It's literally the cinematic. The WoW cinematic, everybody knows, the big titty night elf, you know, transforming into a cat as she runs through the... I mean, every single prepubescent boy remembers that night elf chick. You remember her. Oh, yes, you do. And Feral has been shit for quite a while, and it's literally the druid spec that I think of when I think of a druid. Crazy.
where it's not subject to a lot of big nerfs that would just make it a terrible spec to play, or just giga changes in how the spec expresses itself in a raid. I'll probably put this at around like a 7. It's not going to be amazing. You're not going to top the meters, but you're likely not going to get nerfed into the ground either. In terms of lore, there's not that many feral druids that spark my interest. I don't think the lore is very strong around feral specifically. There are other druid specs that are, you know, represented in the lore a lot more, and that is a little bit of a shame. In terms of fun, I would put this at it would probably be a 9. I just love how feral plays. It's actually, I'm gonna put it at an 8 now that I think about it, because the hero talents just kind of drag it down a little bit, and this is how you can see how the number changes based on my preference. In terms of Mog, I mean, we probably have to consider the druid form specs aesthetics. I'll probably put it at around like a 7. Cats are fine. I feel like they're missing some awesome aesthetics, like what bears
have got. What the hell? Priest. He gave the priest Mog a 2. Damn, he hates priest Mog. The guy don't like cloth Mogs at all. Shit.
And what Boom
Priest had one of the best tier set Mogs in
I think like Feral's a little bit
Dragonflight.
behind on that. Augmentation. Now, when it comes to performance, it has been nerfed recently, but I still feel like augmentation is just going to perform really well, because if it's not going to perform really well, it's going to be a dead spec. Since you either
the weird thing about augmentation, and the reason why I feel like Blizzard is so afraid to really nerf it in any way, is like he said, nobody will play it. It's a spec that's very much dependent on being invited to things, essentially. And if you can't get invited to things because you've been nerfed in any way, then nobody is going to play that spec. It's the only one like that. So I don't see them getting nerfed anytime soon, honestly, because then they'll just become completely unviable for the game.
Value its utility and the fact that it can keep
if they had
tanks
more
alive a little
support
bit
specs, they
easier,
could do
the
it,
multiple
but they don't.
dispels and all of that, or you don't value it at all. I don't think there's any in between with augmentation. I think right now it's probably at least going to be a 10, if anything. Filling in, it's probably going to be a 10 as well. There might be some changes once the raid releases, but I feel like the first evoker you would probably ever want in a group would be an augmentation above devastation and evoker. And until they change how the spec functions, I don't think that's ever going to change, considering that augmentation brings everything the other two specs bring, and it's tankier, and it actually helps boost some of the specs in your overall performance. Safe pick, Jesus Christ. I would probably put this at around like 9. It's very close to getting a close. It's very close
augmentation
to
is about to be his best
top
one.
marker here, but I feel like everybody's eyes are on augmentation, and it's likely one of the specs that will probably get the most nerfs or the most consistent nerfs, because it's way too mandatory in almost all of the top end content.
Yeah,
that
I don't see it happening. Like I said, the only way I see them nerfing shit is they give like Bard to Rogue or something. Like they got to create other support specs to nerf the only support spec. Otherwise, you've essentially deleted support specs from the game if you nerf them.
The devs probably don't like it that it's so
they're kind of immortal.
So it's likely one that will get some nerfs, but still, even with those nerfs, like I said, that's probably the only reason why I wouldn't get a 10. In terms of lore, I honestly don't really care. I would probably give it a 0. I guess Emberthal is kind of cool. I just don't vibe with the Drakthir lore in general. Fun, I would probably give it a 7. It is pretty fun to play, and the hero towns actually do it justice. Otherwise, it would probably be like a 6 for me. So that's what it would get. And in terms of Mog, it's probably like a 2. You can make your Drakthir and augmentation in this case look kind of cool with all the Drake customization. I'm not a fan of its aesthetics whatsoever.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of any Drakthir style aesthetics, honestly. Yeah, Necromancer for DK. There's so many ways that they can introduce support specs for other classes. No doubt. I mean, you guys have said a couple in the chat already. There's a lot of ways they could do it. They just, I think they wanted to play out augmentation, see how it looks. I'm pretty sure that they like the way augmentation is filled out, but they need to give more. Fellsinger DH, yeah, maybe. I like the idea of Necromancer. A Bard obviously is a major one that people have been saying for the longest time. I mean, how could we not have Bards yet? So there's ways to do it.
Give the devils its due when it comes to the amount of customizational options that Drakthirs have, so that's why it gets a 2. And even though it's perfect in terms of performance, for the more subjective categories, for me, augmentation ranks fairly low, even though I think it's the only spec that got both 10 in performance and the requirement of you having it in a group. And in the end, I can just filter these specs based on performance. If my purpose is big numbers, fun, if I just want to enjoy and not give a fuck about what I do, or the total score if I value all of these categories.
There's no way. He ranked Arcane Mage as more fun than Fire Mage. That's absolute insanity. I now trust nothing that this man has said in this entire... Fire Mage is way more fun and will always be way more fun than Arcane. Get the heck out of here.
Or if I value all of these categories.
New Arcane Mage?
Personally,
I haven't played
I value fun and lore more than most other categories, which is why I will main Mage over Unholy.
Pyroblasting anything will always be S tier feeling.
Even though Unholy, in my ranking, has a higher overall score. Most people try to find or justify their choice to be meta, and sometimes that's fine, but other times it's not. I mentioned our Meta Sucks video earlier, and you can watch it right now and see what we think when it comes to choosing a spec to play based off of the fact that it is or it isn't a meta spec.
I'll summarize the video for you that he just pointed out. It's dumb. Don't do it because meta changes. Meta changes, but freaking week to week. Why would you chase something that's constantly changing? What the hell? Just play what you like. Yeah, overall, fun video. The conversation we had in the background was good because it really does play to his chart. And it really does say that you just play what you want. Play what you want, play what you like. At the end of the day, there's probably going to be a time where you get to shine in the sunlight as the best spec in the game. So why not? Just play whatever you want.